What's up guys? So in Matt Easton's latest video, among other things, he does talk a little bit about the Indian stalked basket hilt, and he believes that that was there so that you could basically do everything you can with one hand, but then if you wanted you can switch to a two-handed grip instead. And I've come to exactly the same conclusion as Matt Easton, so I'd like to share some of my own thoughts in the matter. So this has come from experimentation. As you can see, I've made a little simulator for it. And yeah, as far as I know, and as far as Matt knows, as far as I know, there are no manuals which actually depict its use. So we have to go off of experience and experimentation. And as far as I know, I think I'm the only person who has actually tried this so far. So yeah, I came up with this design completely independently before I'd even heard that such a sword design actually existed. And all I did is I got an extended pommel. So I got the extended pommel so that I could put the cross guard on and basically use it like a longsword. But I thought, what if I put it on the end of the basket hilt as well? And people are telling me, it's silly, it's not going to work, it's completely impractical, it's completely unhistorical. But turns out it is actually a historical thing, and it does actually end up working quite well. So yeah, this happens an awful lot in HEMA. Somebody comes up with some cool practical technique or some funky design, and inevitably, if the idea is actually good, it turns out somebody else thought of it hundreds of years before. So yeah, quite a famous example of this happening in the HEMA community is Shadiversity talking about how if somebody goes for his legs, he'll step back and smack him in the head rather than trying to do some kind of low block. But yeah, as it turns out, basically every historical master and their mother had already thought of this, and it had been independently documented, maybe even dozens of times previously. So yeah, that's one of the fun things about HEMA. You know, you think you come up with something original and clever, but it turns out someone else has already thought of it. You know, I think that's almost memeable. I'm not sure exactly how the meme would go, but it's a common enough occurrence that I think something workable is there. But I've gone way off topic here. So yeah, I'd like to tell you first about how you can actually make one of these for yourself and try them out. Just buy, if you've already got a basket hilted rolling sword, just buy an extended pommel and you can just connect it onto the end. I absolutely love these things. They are so modifiable. Yeah, it's just brilliant. So I did the same thing when I wanted to turn one of these into an English basket hilt. I just got one of these cross guards. I got this idea from Oz from English Martial Arts, as it happens. You get one of these, and then all you have to do to make it fit properly is cut the flanges here off of the end of the basket hilt, and cut that bit off there, and it fits on beautifully. And it's much easier than you'd expect. Any sharp Stanley knife will do the job. Obviously you have to take care, it can be pretty dangerous when you're doing it. I shouldn't have to tell people this, but apparently I do anyway. So yeah, just make sure you're always cutting away from the body and not towards, because yeah, that's how nasty injuries happen. So you end up with something like this, and you could modify it a bit further. So this is made from the same plastic as the crossguard as far as I can tell, so you should be able to get a Stanley knife in there and just leave the knuckle bow and the dish bit of the hilt there. And if you really want to, you could get a bit of dished metal and cut a hole in it and put it onto here as well to end up with a really quite authentic seeming simulation. So, as for my own experience, yeah, I find that I can do everything I can do with one hand and still move it just the same. This does not get in the way in the slightest. I'm sure I could get it to go in the way if I really tried, but it has not been an issue whatsoever when I've used it. But as well as that, you can also switch to two hands when necessary. So you've got the full repertoire of one-handed techniques, And then you've also got the full repertoire of two-handed techniques as well. I find it works beautifully. There's certain things you can do with two-handed swords which you simply can't with one-handed swords. So, for example, using the second hand to lever, you can move the sword that way much quicker. So if you're going high, or if they think you're going high, very, very quickly switch low like that. Another thing I like is doing thrust singles. So as you can see, this is as far as I can reach there with cutting with the lead hand. But if I've got the second hand on there, I can do what's called a thrust single, and I can get a hell of a lot more reach there. I mean, you know, that's probably a foot or so extra reach there just by doing the thrust singles. I love doing that with quarterstaff and two-handed swords. So yeah, this works beautifully when you're using a sword like this as well. So a couple of other potential benefits. Something which has happened a couple of times is I've gone to block high and they've tried to go under my guard there, and this has ended up saving me. This has ended up catching the sword there, and yeah, it's not something which has happened a huge amount of times, but it happens enough that it could actually end up saving your life potentially, or at least save you from getting hit if you're sparring. So it does make the guard a little bit better, makes you slightly less likely to get hit like that. Obviously, extra reach when you're going to hit someone with a pommel. So if somebody comes over here, if I've stepped into here and smacked like that, they've got to get back that extra 5 or so inches in order to not get hit. I don't have to press in quite as aggressively. So for pommel strikes, this is actually pretty fucking awesome as well. And one of the final benefits I've found is that when my forearm starts to get tired when I'm sparring, I can end up just resting it here like this instead, and this takes most of the weight of the sword there, enables you to recover a little bit, but still offers quite a bit of threat there, and you can do that without actually letting your opponent know that you're getting fatigued at that point. So this I have found to be pretty useful as well. And so at this point, I'm sure there's quite a few of you thinking, well, you know, if there's all of those benefits to it, surely there must be some sort of catch to the design as well. So yeah, well done for thinking that if you did. But from a sparring perspective, I really don't see that many disadvantages. I have found when I'm sparring, it is simply better than a basket hilt without it. I simply spar better, I land more hits, I take more hits when I've got this than without it, even though I'm far more practiced with the basket hilt by itself. But really that's missing an awful lot of context. So in modern HEMA, we really don't think about carrying the thing around all day. We're not carrying it carrying it on our hips all the time. Many of us have cars, so we can drive there and drive to the club and train. We start with the sword drawn, we don't start with it sheathed. So there's that aspect of context, and as you can see, obviously this takes up more space, and if you sit down that could fly around and hit you in the stomach and get in the way and be horribly uncomfortable. And if you've got something taking up that much space as it is, I think why not just go for a long sword at that point anyway. So that is one pretty big disadvantage as far as I'm concerned, and I really think that that is the main one there. Obviously it's going to cost slightly more, you've got that much more metal, but I really don't think that's a particularly meaningful difference either. And finally, that extra weight, it could make a difference in certain circumstances. So yes, if you're in like a medium guard, for example, this here acts as a counterweight, so there's less torque on the forearm there, which does make this sort of guard easier. But hanging guard or an open fight, anything where it's relying on shoulder strength to support the full weight of the sword there, those extra 4, 5, 6 ounces could make a pretty big difference when it comes to fatigue. Perhaps they'd make enough of a difference that you simply wouldn't want to go for that kind of design. So yeah, I've only really used this with a synthetic. Maybe if I was using a full weight metal weapon, which may weigh a pound more, maybe this wouldn't be such a good idea. Maybe I'd end up getting tired really quickly when I'm in these sorts of guards. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and obviously try this out for yourself. Really, really cheap. I think this thing costs £8 or so. It's rather cheap, and if you've already got a Rawlings basket hilted sword, then get one of these and try it out for yourself. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment below, and I'll see you soon. Bye.